Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Please excuse the mess back here. As you know, as always, everything is a work in progress.
I know we do our best. You know, our forte really is more spiritually. We're working on the gardening though, because that can lead into a lot of good spirituality.
Yeah, and it's been, you know, just like everybody, we're trying to keep grounded in a time when your head is spinning with all the changes going on.
So many changes and so many different experiences, so many new perceptions and understanding. So gosh, where do you start when it comes to all this new information we have rolling in?
Well, the video that we put up on Evolutionary, it touched at the end on Mohenjo Daro and the Harappan civilization, the people of the Indus Valley that seemed to live just so differently than people did in Sumeria and in many other places of the world when we're going way back in time to the beginnings of this modern era, so to speak. These people lived just diametrically opposed to others. There was no central authority. There was no kingship. They had advanced culture. They had advanced ways, as we touched on in that last video. 2,000 years before the Romans were making their famous aqueducts and water systems, they had similar systems already in place 2,000 years before the Romans did theirs. They also did not apparently have a lot of weapons of war in a storeroom. They didn't seem to be concerned with war. They lived a very, very peaceful life. And again, no central authority. Things were done in a much different way. It was a very open and free society. It was a very, very benevolent society of equals. And that's something we don't have in this world. We don't have equals. We have people that take advantage of other people. And when you look to the politicians of this world, can you really expect anything from them? The majority of them end up being billionaires or millionaires. They end up being subservient to these corporate, quote-unquote, interests. You have paid for bribery in the form of lobbying. Obviously, you're going to have a corrupt civilization. And it's a toxic civilization. It's going to end. And that's the good part.
That's the good part. But please excuse the writing, but this is one of the things that we do is we come out and we do mantras, and then I open the door to some understanding, because we wanted to take a little bit closer look at these beings. And what we're seeing is a collective of beings wishing to create a human experience during the golden age, and I thought that was really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Indus Valley civilization was, again. And it existed to a certain point in time, and then it appears that people left or were forced out of the area, and it was no more. Again, as we go through the Yuga in the declining cycle, we go from the Golden Age to what we call the Silver, to what we call the Bronze, you know, to what we call the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. And we have been living in the Kali Yuga. Well, technically, we might be in the early stages of the Bronze. I'd be curious to see what the guides say. Do they have a quick answer on that? Are we technically still in the Dark Age, or are we 1 foot out into the Bronze yet?
They're showing me different shades, so there is no quick answer. It's complicated.
Okay, so it's also a blending.
Yes.
It is really a blending, because you have aspects of some things coming on and other aspects of some other things that might still be dominant right now, but won't be dominant in the future.
Right. There's a lot of new perceptions coming in, and we can view it like every time somebody has a new understanding or a new perception, that's a point of light. That's a light dot on the map of the all. So as these new perceptions come in, of course, there's more dots of light, hence lightening everything up and creating that shading or that blending of energy.
Absolutely. So the top vibration is that of joy and celebration, as this is the Golden Age experience. So that's something to touch on, and many of you understand this because we see comments out there all the time that will say things like, don't you realize that the apparent darkness is nothing but an opportunity for growth and learning? Yes, it is that. It absolutely is that. And what Cindy was getting is that as time goes on, as you guys very well, I'm sure you've experienced this too, you get so saturated with the negativity that becomes the dominant energy in our lives. You know, it's just like with the news. You know, oh, they'll give you a tiny bit of good news at the end of the story, but the reality is that, you know, 99% of it is bad, or perceived as bad, perceived as negative. We could say 99% of it is stuff that we could view as being painful or distasteful, or things we don't really want to see blossoming and blooming in this world. Yet it is blossoming and blooming, unfortunately, in this dark age. It's just following a blue jay there. And, you know, we've wrestled with this a lot because, you know, we would rather just go into more the spiritual side of things and the hidden history side. And just like many of you out there, we would rather just say, screw the news. We really, you know, it's so hard to view it at this point in time. It's just so hard. And there have been many days that I've done a video on the news, and then it takes 2 or 3 hours to purge those energies from me. That it's just like you got to take a spiritual shower because you just can't get them off you fast enough.
No, and I really like the way you talked about that energy, you know, that negativity being the dominant energy for people, because when we're in a dark age, we can look at it as far as darkness goes, understanding our emotions is what really keeps us in the dark. And those that do control everything, they control what we see. And as long as we don't have time to explore and our head is spinning in negativity, how are we going to stop and see any positivity out of that, let alone understand that there is positivity there, because we're so saturated in negativity. And that's why we have to take back our power, take back our lives, and boy, shut that news off. It really is. If you're getting so stressed out, then it's time to just turn it off and focus on the good.
Absolutely. So what they did in the Indus Valley civilization is they did just that. They focused on the good and the joy. There were many different teachers, and we, you know, in our history and mythology, we look at them as different gods, different deities that help with this experience. Now, not all deities are created equally, so to speak. We have deities that we see closer to this age that have a lot of jealous and selfish tendencies closer to this particular period in time, and those that we are exposed to in this period of time. That, you know, again, we've talked about the Anunnaki, and at some point in time, you know, we're going to have that day of the quote-unquote Lord when they actually return. And yeah, it's dreadful and fearful is what they want to give us, because they rule by fear. Again, hellfire and damnation, that's them. That's them. They're giving you their belief system. It's one of the rod. It's one of, you better or we're going to punish you. And, you know, we've seen this all throughout the Old Testament, and it's still in the New Testament too, to a degree. Again, that's why, you know, we need to be able to develop the discernment to see things for what they really, really are. Sure, I mean, when you look at the Beatitudes, they're beautiful. They're beautiful and of high vibe. But then again, of course, you have slaves obey your masters too, and that's not high vibe. And again, there should never be a period when there is slavery. Slavery is just something that could never be condoned. Well, it was an accepted practice back in those days. Yeah, this is the dark age. It's not a practice of the golden age. So much of what we see and we are taught in this age is a dark age practice. It's a, if you want to use the word, it's a satanic practice. Why would we want to ever embrace or even give credence to something being okay at any time period? Because again, slavery is never okay.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk energy exchange for just a moment. We know the kind of energy exchange we have now, and it's constantly being utilized and abused for certain people to really control everything. But during this time, the energy exchange was completely harmonious with all. It was a 5D teaching, actually a lot from the Pleiadians. Pleiadians brought this down and explained to people to understand how your emotions go, and if something is happening or going on and you're not okay with that, then you're out of harmony, and you need to figure out how are you out of harmony and correct that. So people were really highly aware of themselves when it comes to this, because they wanted to be, not because they had to be, they were being forced or anything like this. They wanted to be, they wanted this experience, so they would feel around for another opportunity to learn and create that harmony within themselves and for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be some form of energy exchange, and many people understand that, but not a monetary system that allows for people to take advantage of each other. And what's coming obviously with the digital system is one in which they have no checks and balances. They could do whatever they want, and they could even either allow or disallow you to purchase even an item, even if you have plenty of funds. That's not freedom. That's not a concept of an even energy exchange. When we work to get out of this system, it might simply revert to something more akin to barter and trade. And that is an energy exchange. I'll give you a dozen eggs for a dozen oranges. Wow, okay. Yeah, that feels fair. Sure, if you're good with that, I'm good with that. It's just that simple. But there's no way for the system. And again, this system is completely parasitic. It's a parasite. It's a cancer. There's no way for it to feed off of that. That's why they can't have it. They feed off of us, all of us. This is their very nature of being, is feeding off of others in a non-even exchange of energies. And in fact, they don't give you anything that you could view as positive or beneficial. They're just taking. They take without giving. That's the Dark Age. Again, when we go back to the Tower of Babel and Genesis 11, and it says, "Look, humanity is united. We cannot have this. Come, let us go down there and confound their speech." Basically, again, we have genetic manipulation going on. Even to this day, we have things that are being done intentionally to turn off your pineal glands so you can't perceive the truth. So many people are incapable of true discernment because their pineal glands are not functioning at all. So all they could do is just go off of different facts, apparent facts and figures, in reality, lies and mistruths, to say the least, found in books, and just basically decide, do I want to believe this or do I want to believe that? There's no discernment involved there. It's just basically an act of faith. Aha! Faith. Faith. You must have faith. Really, why? What's faith? Faith is something that you accept as reality that's not necessarily something that can be proven. So again, it's just like the mainstream media and the news. But when you know something, when you experience something, you're not going on faith. And again, why would you have faith in anything that comes from the rulership of this system? Because look at the fruits of this system. That'll tell you where this system is based. What are the fruits of this system? Inequality. People starving while governments are using other people's tax dollars to pay farmers to not farm, while there are people starving because they want to make a certain amount of profit on the commodities. That is pure evil. That's evil. Look closely at how we have been manipulated and kept at each other's throats through patriotism. And I know a lot of you, there are some out there, like we put this on Evolutionary, and you speak up against patriotism, you're probably going to lose, 5 to 10%, not quite 10%, 5% to maybe 8% of the approval. Because, this is the way some people were brought up. They were brought up to, fear the Lord, fear your parents, think that you were brought up, you're lucky to be here because you're on the best place on the planet. And not get into specifics. Why is it the best? Well, it's not the best crime rate. Well, it's not the best with life expectancy. Well, it doesn't have the best health care. It doesn't have the best track record because it starts the most wars of any other nation on the planet in its existence the last 200 years. So what exactly is it the best for? Freedoms? Personal freedoms? Well, obviously with the censorship, that's gone. No, you're manipulated through your ego. Pride is all about ego, and they utilize it to manipulate you. This is what's gone on. And then many people, again, have been brought up in a family where they can't speak up if they disagree. They'll get the belt. They'll get the belt, the whip, the lash. That's an act of a master with his slave. That's not how we're to treat each other. Now, some might say, well, that sounds kind of liberal. So this is where the whole left-right dichotomy comes in. Because, the left doesn't have everything right, and the right doesn't have everything right either. They get us choosing between what we perceive as the lesser of two evils, as far as the system goes, in order so that they could keep their agenda of division going. We've been divided on purpose. The people of this Indus Valley, that's a civilization like what's spoken of in the Tower of Babel. It was people that were working together. They weren't fighting each other. They were happy. They were building. They were creating. It was the ego of the slave masters, the Anunnaki, Gigi, and the humans that sold out humanity. It's their ego that it can't have that. And that's why, through wars and attacks, these people were driven from the area and their cities were destroyed. Because they were living peacefully. They were living peacefully outside of the rest of the system of that time. They had a golden age mentality at the dawn of the Dark Age and the decline of the Bronze Age.
Mm-hmm. And knowledge is very, very important. They understood there were angels and guides, and they knew them. They studied with them. They interacted with them for their personal experience enrichment. That was really important. And right now, again, we can go back to that vocabulary word, or 2 vocabulary words, is dark age. We are not taught this, and if we are, we're taught to fear it. We're given many reasons why we should fear speaking to those who might have another purpose, or might have information to add to our lives in a beneficial way. It's always tainted with, well, you're probably talking to demons, so just don't do it at all. And bringing that fear in right away. But when you build the discernment and you're working through your heart chakra, and you build in a relationship with these beings, it's not just about, okay, boom, here they are. No, you have to talk to them, feel, discern, understand, do a little research, and then put it together. But that's something that was really important. The surroundings, how we experience our consciousness. What is consciousness? So that was the teachings. And they were very beautiful. They were very, very interactive, and they really just completely enriched their lives.
And their lifespan was many hundreds of Earth years, and they didn't really mark time like we mark time. They just basically watched the cycles that the heaven was showing, but they didn't have a concern to even mark time. It wasn't even something that would be of prime importance, so to speak. They were in harmony and in tune with the earth and the natural way of things, which would allow them to have success in cultivation of different plants and different crops and things along those lines, because of the harmony that they were in with the planet itself. So again, these beings would live a lot longer. We were having a discussion with a family member, and again, in this world, we're always so consumed with things like having to pay our taxes, and oh gosh, what if I can't afford my health insurance anymore? Oh, these type of things. We understand everybody has their own unique circumstances they're going through in their quest to try to kind of get disentangled from the system. This system is like an octopus, where as soon as you cut off one tentacle, another one latches onto you. And it's not going to be easy to totally cut ourselves off from this. But we have to keep striving. If we don't start striving now, then we're never going to get anywhere, and we're going to find ourselves in a worse form of techno-slavery than we can ever imagine, because this is exactly what the controllers have planned. Now, the food that they ate was of the highest vibration. It was raised and consumed with love. And again, when we look to the Bible, for instance, you see that in the initial creation, it said that the herbs and the leaves of the trees and the plants, that's going to be your medicine, and the fruit is going to be your food. Well, what do people eat in a fifth density? They eat fruit.
Mm-hmm. And this one was a little bit difficult for me to share. Mostly just, I do get concerned about people's perception of me. There is definitely a concern there. But when I was shown this information, I was the apple on the tree. I was the apple on the tree. I had just as much consciousness as I do now. I was looking out into my yard, and this apple wanted to convey that it knows it's going to be eaten. Please pray over me, raise my vibration so that I might experience through you. So when that hit me, it almost brought me to tears, because it was such a shock to know that the food and its understanding that it's alive and it wants to share this experience with us. And I know that might not be for everyone, but that's my experience, and I really feel I need to share it with you guys.
Mm-hmm. So, again, it's not like saying everybody's got to become vegan overnight, because even veganism in itself would not be going quite all the way to a fifth density way of things, so to speak. Because the reality is, as we get higher vibed, we can just take life force from the sun, from the stars, from the very atmosphere itself, and there really is no need to eat. Even when we're in fourth density, we're not the same as when we're in third density. You're not necessarily having to cook a beautiful dinner. You might perceive yourself cooking a beautiful dinner because it's something that brings you comfort and satisfaction, but it's nothing you have to do. Because again, we can absorb the life force through the prana that's all around us all the time. And there's actually been some yogis that have gone a long period of time without eating. I mean, some decades. And of course, that perplexes us, and we say that's scientifically impossible. Well, that's only because the science is dark age science that wants to keep you rooted in this slave-based system and existence. On the higher densities, no, energy is abundant. It's everywhere. It's coming from source ultimately. And it's free. It's free. They don't want it being free. They want it at a cost, and they want to basically carbon tax you. So, again, it's up to each person. Now, you might have health issues in which, there's certain nutrients that are easier to obtain from animal-based sources at this point in time. That's, well and good. We should always be giving thanks and praying over our food and charging it with positivity, love, and light, beneficial energies, and have this feeling of thankfulness. And in time, we can work towards whatever really is being guided from the higher self. Everybody's in a different place. There are some people that are still on a sad standard American diet and still addicted to all the, chemicals and compounds and dyes and all these things that are so toxic to us, high fructose corn syrup and the like. And for you to try to go and just live off fruit, it would be a recipe for disaster. Absolutely, everything has to be done slowly and in its stages, and when it feels right to your higher self. And again, for so many people, the biggest challenge is getting in touch with that higher self in the first place. How do you do it? Well, we could tell you the things that inhibit you getting in touch with your higher self, and that would be, running on the wheel all day, being exposed to these EMFs, being around 5G, being drinking fluoridated water, eating all these foods with additives, preservatives, and dyes, high fructose corn syrup, and the like. All those things are going to prevent you from getting in touch with your higher self. They're going to keep you in a lower state of vibration. It's just like, why do they call alcohol spirits? Well, because it kind of opens the doors so all the entities that are trapped on the lower 4D are going to be right there with you. Singing Kumbaya together or whatever in the bar. It's just the reality of these things. And, again, it's up to the individual at their own time to start weaning these things out of our experience. And you might choose to keep things in your experience. Again, it's your personal version of this universe. We're all experiencing this reality from a slightly different perspective, and that's how it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. As you have Vishnu, Vishnu is the name that he gave to us because it was the name that we would recognize him by, and he is the creator of this universe. Other indigenous people would give him different names according to their traditions. But there is a creator to this universe, and he's very benevolent and very loving. And when Cindy first started to channel his energy, she was overwhelmed by the love.
I really was. I probably cried half the day and just channeling the information that he was wanting to convey, wanting to try to call in the love, pull in the love, pull in the understanding and enlightenment. It was really quite an experience, and it did take a while to calm down a little bit, but I wanted to touch again about the vibration of joy and celebration being such a high place, and there was never any perception of bad. They always understood whatever was going on had to do with growth, and it had to do with creation. So seeing it in a golden age from that aspect, if you just stay in that space, I mean, that's got to be something really beautiful to be able to call in. And right now we are, again, it's the dark age. We're not going to be able to see everything from that perspective, mostly because things are hidden from us. And it was Yeshua who said, "My people die from lack of knowledge." I mean, isn't that huge? That speaks so much.
Absolutely. And also called out the religious leaders of the day as being, followers of Satan, being followers of the adversary. It's the same true right now. And many that are afraid of coming in contact with quote-unquote demonic energies, they're actually serving the true adversary of humanity in their belief system of separation. And they don't even realize that they're not on Team Light. They're actually hindering the growth of the dawn of an age that's not going to be dominated by strife and division and hatred and jealousy and infighting and all the things that we want to say goodbye to, and we want to welcome in the new era, and yet there's such a fear over just the term new age. dawning of the new age. You know, it will send many of a fundamentalist mindset screaming into the bushes, you know, looking for holy water to bathe in. And again, all water is holy. It's just a matter of putting your intention into it. Let's see if that's going to show itself. That sounds like a helicopter. So it's a matter of just intent. We can make all water holy. We don't need a priest to do it. Just bless it yourself. You don't need anybody. You don't need any dogma. You could just reach out to the Creator at any time you really want to. Just have that open heart. Now, you might not be able to perceive a response depending on how deeply entrenched you are in the system with the fluoridated water and all the poisons and toxins that they're constantly putting in your body, and all the signals that they're constantly sending through your body and your energy bodies all day long. But many people that are incarnated now are from the Golden Age. They're here because they want to help those that are still trapped totally in the darkness to help escape this darkness and call it for what it was. It's all about consciousness. Consciousness is all around you. These trees are listening. They are listening, and they are acknowledging. They understand. We have seen studies where plants have been routinely harmed by an individual in a lab, just one individual, and then the plants will respond with fear when the individual shows up, even though he doesn't harm them. Consciousness abounds. There is nothing that doesn't have consciousness in it. Everything is consciousness. And it's recognizing that. And it's recognizing the bigger purpose for life. And that's that we all are absolutely unique individuals. One size never fits all. And that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And know that if you get overwhelmed, to direct your attention toward Mother Earth, toward her energy, and that will definitely help pull you into balance. They also had a keen understanding of the planet's personality, the stars. They knew that it was part of their co-creative experience. They knew that these planets had influences on them.
Absolutely. You know, as these planets and stars are all very, very large, benevolent beings, they understood that they were imbued with consciousness and that they've also experienced perhaps a little bit more than we have. So I hope you guys got something out of that. As always, we want to thank you for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. Much love. May you be blessed by the Creator of this universe. Namaste.